I'm making this video for a friend. I'm trying to get through with Python functions. So I'm going to write a simple Python script, and I just want to show how to define Python functions, also call Python functions, and some other cool shit you can do with Python functions. And for this case, what I'm going to present as a use case is a simple task. So imagine you are asked to write a Python function that collects or takes in an array as an argument and also a number. All you have to do is to return all the numbers that's greater than that particular number. For example, if you're given a list with 1, 2, 3, and the threshold or the number you're given is 2, you should return the number of numbers that are greater than the threshold you've been given, like the counts. So if we observe from our example, our threshold is 2, and our array has 3 numbers, 1, 2, 3. In those 3 numbers, we only have one number that's greater than 2. So what we do is we return 1. 1 being the count of the numbers in the list greater than 2. So with that being said, I'm just going to write the script and move on. Alright, let's go. This is a little bit bigger. This is physical. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and create a new file. I'm just going to name it function of py. So we are now presented with our file and our editor, and we can now begin programming. So the task is to define the function. Let's do that. Our function, you can give it any name. Well, I'm just gonna name it number threshold count. So now when you define Python functions, you have this this symbol right here, or keyword, and what it does is it tells Python that you're about to start writing or defining a function. What comes next is the function name. Like, you need a way to reach out to the function and make use of it. So what next do we need? For a function to take data from the outside world, we need to pass it some arguments or parameters, just like functions in mathematics. You'd have f of x equals y. X in that case is the parameter, y is the result of f of x, f is the function. So what we're going to do here is we need two parameters, in this case f of x of g equals y. So our first parameter is the array that we're trying to take in. I'm just going to call this guy array, and the second parameter is the other guy we're trying to take in. We're just going to call this threshold. So after defining the function, is passing the semicolon. Very important when you're trying to start a new block. So what comes next after colon, in Python is an indentation, which you can see right here, 4 spaces or a tab. So now that we have our parameters, we can now begin working on them as though they've been provided. So we know very well that array is a list of integers, which I will show you how to annotate later on for more or for further clarification. So here what I'm going to do is, we need a way to store the count. So I'm just going to say count equals 0, because initially it's just 0. So we'll loop through the array, right? We need to check every number. Let's check every number in the array, so we can validate each one to see if they pass the check. So in this case, what I'm going to do is loop through this for I in array. So array here is a list or iterable. I here is the variable that is assigned each value of the items in the array for every iteration. So now that we know all this, we can move on with our function definition. So what we're going to do right here is do a comparison. So we need to check if I is greater than the threshold. Say if I greater than threshold, then we need to increase counts by 1. Yes, that's the requirement for updating the count. We need to set the number of items in the list that is greater than 1. So now that we've done that, you can just go ahead and return count. Now let me tell you what happens here. Whenever we encounter an item in the array that is greater than 1, greater than threshold rather, we increase count by 1. So after we are done with the loop, the for loop right here, we return whatever we have in count. That being said, we can now call our function. I'm just going to provide a test case variable. Sorry. Test case is just going to be. I'm just going to have something generic right here. So results 1 number threshold count, passing our array as test case. In this case, we're just going to set our threshold to 2 or 3 in bad. Then in a second, second test case, we're just going to try the same thing, but then threshold is going to be 7. So now let me go back here to this line. Whenever we return a value from our function, what Python does when it calls it right here is that it evaluates all those guys into a single value. So let's start from the values in the bracket, just like the way you do board math. We have 2 values in the brackets. One is test case, the other one is 3. Now 3 is a definite value. That's its final form. Meanwhile, test case is an array, or a variable rather. So for Python to work with this, test case needs to resolve, or Python needs to resolve test case into an actual array. So once that is evaluated, what we get here actually is not test case in sense, but the actual value of test case. After that is done, this function actually takes in an array and the number. The array points to test case, by the way. And then here you have to do some further evaluation, which is where we call the function. So when Python calls the function, it reduces, or it evaluates the entire thing. The function takes in these 2 arguments here and here, does some processing and returns a number or a value. That value is the result of the evaluation, which we will get here. So once we get that value, and Python now has a definite value from this entire expression, it will assign that value to this variable here, which we defined as res1. Same thing will happen here. The entire thing is evaluated step by step and then assigned to res2. That would mean the result of this first expression is in res1 and the result of the second expression is in res2. So we can now begin, or conclude by printing the result of res1. So once this is done, we can imagine we'll see res1 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and res2 is 1. So when we save this and run, I'll close this a little bit. Okay, so now run this Python func.py. Oh, my bad. Python 3. So here we go. res1 is 5, res2 is 1. I believe that should be simple enough to work with. So now for a bonus, you don't need to use this or know this. Well, if you feel like this entire session or parts which I'm about to get into is too much for you, you can simply drop it and maybe come back to it next time. So whenever we are dealing with values like this, we don't actually know what's coming in. So for easier development, we like to do what we call annotation, which is a way of typing or adding types to Python. I think for the moment the whole thing is not entirely validated by Python, so your annotations are just that. But when you're using IDEs or editors, text editors, you might be able to get a very nice type checking with that aside, let's just go on. So let's say we want to imply that, oh bro, this array right here should be a list of integers. We can add a type annotation like this. We can add a type annotation like this. And here, I'm not going to explain this too much, but just know that you don't need all those parts. So if you feel like it's too much for you, you can just drop it. So I'm just gonna include this right here, and then what we'll do here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, what we'll do here is we return an integer. Because if you take a look at what happens, we are taking in a list and we're taking in a list of integers and threshold being an integer, and we're returning counts, which is also an integer. So it doesn't really do anything special to your code. As you can see, the functions run the same, but it's just a way of adding extra detail to your functions so that they can be well used by maybe other people who are going to call it. Alright, that's all for now. Yeah. Alright, thanks.